Zoos. One of the most common recreational places for families, school trips, and friends alike. They're meant to be safe, educational, and family-friendly, but sometimes the exact opposite of it happens. Animals rage, the zoo enclosures fall apart, and often visitors that confuse thrill with idiocy try to get closer than recommended to the animals. And of course, the consequences are almost always bloody and painful to watch. In this video, we'll show you if people fell into animal enclosures at different zoos. Let's dive right in. In 1986, at Durrell Wildlife Park, a 5-year-old boy, Levin Merritt, fell into a gorilla enclosure while visiting the zoo. A silverback gorilla named Jumbo approached the unconscious boy but did not attack him. Instead, he protected the boy from the other gorillas, which was surprising, as gorillas are rarely this protective. When the boy regained consciousness and started crying, Jumbo became scared and walked away. The zookeepers then rescued the boy from the enclosure. In 2012, a tragic incident occurred at a Pennsylvania zoo when a boy named Maddox Durkosh fell into an African dog's enclosure. Maddox's mother had been holding him close to the protective railing, but the boy suddenly pushed forward and fell in. The dogs immediately attacked the helpless boy, resulting in fatal injuries. Despite the parents' lawsuit against the zoo, which blamed the mother for being careless, the case was eventually settled out of court for a significant amount of money. Despite being an endangered species, pandas are widely loved for their cuteness and adorableness. However, some people forget that pandas are bears and can turn wild without warning. In 2009, in Beijing Zoo, a man attempted to take a selfie with a panda named Zuzu by sneaking into its enclosure. The panda responded by biting the man's leg in a fierce attack, requiring zookeepers to intervene and rescue him. In 2016, an incident occurred at a Chilean zoo where an unidentified man climbed over the fence of an exhibit and took off his clothes before approaching 2 large cats. It was later found out that the man had left a suicide note in his clothes. The worker at the zoo decided to shoot the lions, a male and female, in order to save the man's life, as there were no tranquilizers available at the time. Still, some animal rights activists criticized this decision. Elephants are giant beings and are clearly not animals you'd want to be trampled by, especially when they're in a herd, as David here had to encounter. See how Sydney, an adult elephant, charges directly towards David? As he tries to seek cover, he spots the gate of the enclosure and runs towards it, only to be followed by and thrown across the place by one of the gigantic mammals. The elephant tries to crush David under its devastatingly heavy weight, leaving him cornered. Thankfully, he was later soon rescued by the zoo staff. The Detroit Zoo is known for its amazing collection of animals and energetic and fun-loving visitors. Sometimes they take the fun too far, and it doesn't end up nicely. During his visit to the Detroit Zoo, a 33-year-old man, Rick Swope, noticed some movement in the water. On instinct, Rick dived into the water to find a baby chimpanzee struggling in vain and drowning. The chimpanzee recognized that he was being rescued and left Rick unscathed, as he heroically carried the 135-pound animal safely to land. This is a story from 2009, when a middle-aged woman found her way into a polar bear enclosure for reasons still unknown. Within moments of her entering the pool, the bears charged at her, making sure to let her know that she wasn't welcome, and that too in the worst ways possible. The unidentified woman was soon rescued, but not after extensive injuries, scarring, and a lesson that she'll never forget. This is a story of careless parents and a 2-year-old boy who was accidentally dropped by his mother into a cheetah enclosure from a height of 10 feet. Luckily, the cheetahs paid no heed and didn't bother at all. The rescue staff made sure to keep the cheetahs unbothered as they snuck into the enclosure and safely brought the kid outside. He suffered some injury in his legs owing to the fall, but miraculously that was it. However, the parents were later sued for child endangerment. Jaguars are strong and clever carnivores that can shred the toughest of people to pieces. In this case, a father, a grandfather, and a son went to the zoo together. However, panic ensued when the child managed to crawl his way into a jaguar enclosure where 2 of them leapt at him in an instant, scarring and biting him. Rescue staff rushed to save him, followed by an emergency helicopter that carried the child to the nearest hospital, where he fully recovered. Sometimes people do things for meaningless and stupid reasons. This woman was one of those. Years ago, a woman climbed her way into a tiger enclosure to retrieve her hat that had fallen into it. I guess it made enough sense to her to risk her life for something so trivial. Even though she returned safely, the hunger in the tiger's eyes and the danger in the scenario was enough for her to be shamed all over the internet for weeks. This is yet another incident where no one understood why a visitor would do that to themselves. In this particular incident, a young man, Chang, made his way into a lion's enclosure where, unsurprisingly, both the male and female beasts took turns attacking him. The rescue staff tackled the situation using fire extinguishers and blow darts and convinced Chang to exit the enclosure safely. In 1999, a young, sober man rid himself of his clothes and found his way into the pool of a famous orca at SeaWorld at night. The next morning, he was found dead on the orca's back with no external injuries, suggesting that he was held underwater by the massive thing for long durations. Cassowaries are eerie birds, and may be hostile sometimes, as this man who was responsible to clean their facility. See how one of them follows him and tries to bite him as he panics and tries to escape by an astonishing backflip? This is the story of the infamous gorilla Harambe that met the same fate as the lions mentioned before. A 3-year-old kid fell into the gorilla enclosure, but Harambe was surprisingly gentle with him, but not willing to risk the child's life. The 17-year-old gorilla was killed, an incident that received international media attention, so much so that people started naming their kids after him. Our phones are very dear to us, but are they more dear than life itself? For this man, apparently not. While trying to take a photograph, he dropped his phone into the monkey enclosure and decided to head inside to retrieve it, where he instantly got attacked by dozens of monkeys. Zoo workers eventually saved him, and he did get back his phone. But was it worth it? Sometimes animals can be more caring than people. Such is this story, when, during a diving competition, a 26-year-old diver cramped her leg and was unable to return to the surface. As she was without a breathing apparatus, she could have lost her life. Thankfully, a beluga whale nudged her to the surface with its nose, where she was then rescued. In 2016, in a Mexican facility for felines, an employee named Eduardo almost met an accident. While visiting the enclosure to spend time with the big cats, which were accustomed to him, the leopard inched forward to attack him. Thankfully, another tiger intercepted the attack and protected Eduardo. Who said cats aren't loyal? In Australia, an intoxicated man decided to spend some quality time with a crocodile at a local zoo, which clearly didn't welcome the intrusion. It bit the man's leg, but then left him alone, probably because it couldn't be bothered. In Illinois in 1996, a 3-year-old boy fell into an enclosure with gorillas, but was miraculously saved by a gorilla, possibly due to its maternal instinct. The ape carefully carried the young boy to the enclosure's entrance, where he was retrieved by zoo workers. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.